Welcome to Weekly Homilies at St. Joseph Parish in York, Pennsylvania.
We hear in the Gospel how Jesus shows the apostles who he truly is. This is because the apostles realized that there was a limit to their own knowledge and placed their trust in him. Jesus was leading the fishermen to their vocation as his followers. Because they were obedient, they allowed themselves to follow the one who had authority. God calls each and every one of us to a vocation. We are called to help each other become saints through 4 very distinct vocations: the married life between husband and wife, consecrated life, religious priests, brothers and sisters, the priesthood, and single life. As priests, you have heard over the course of the last few weeks vocation stories. First, from a consecrated priest we heard a few weeks ago. Last week, from our own parochial vicar, Father Reddig. And because we've all been asked to share our vocation story, I'm sorry you're going to have to hear it maybe a third time from a different perspective. But it's each important to understand because it's not a priest story that is told. Each of us has a vocation story that God calls each and every one of us to our own vocation in a very different way. And it's good to talk about these things, even though it probably takes a little while to get it all formed together. But my vocation was revealed to me slowly over the course of many years. I grew up in Colombia with my dad and mom and 3 other brothers. We prayed in the morning, at meal times, and in the evening before bed, and had a loving environment in the home. We belonged to Holy Trinity Catholic Church in Colombia, where we had wonderful priests and religious sisters as an example. One such sister, Sister Anna, who is still at Holy Trinity today. Sisters are ageless and timeless, aren't they? But Sister Anna taught us religion all throughout school. She taught us about Christ and the lives of the saints that really wanted us to follow in their footsteps in the way she taught us about the lives of the saints. While we did not pray the rosary at home every night, and my parents, if you ask them, what did you do to allow these vocations to foster in the home, they would say, we don't know. But I think that there were a few things that they did do to inspire us. They encouraged us to be involved in the life of the parish. Dad would take us to holy name meetings, and we would be there in 1st and 2nd grade, not realizing what was even being discussed or who these people were sitting around the table, but we would just sit and listen as everything was going on. We would serve at funeral and wedding masses, daily and Sunday masses. We would mulch the flower beds around the church property, help clean the school over the summer, be involved with the youth in enacting the living stations of the cross during Holy Week and decorating the church at Christmas, and many other such things. The phone would ring, and it would be Sister Anna, and she would say, we need the twins, my brother and I, down here for a funeral mass, and we would go down, or whatever mass it would be. So we were around the church a lot. I was never referred to Kyle. I was always referred to one of the twins. So whenever somebody says my name, I always wonder, well, who is that? Because we were always known as twins. Get over here. We also had a family business, a salvage yard, or as we always called it, a junkyard. All of us worked there. My 3 other brothers and I worked there, and it built up discipline and character. Early on, we would spend only mornings working there, and we started, I think, in 5th grade, just doing little things like taking a big magnet around to the different roads to make sure to pick up the metal so that people wouldn't get flat tires. My brother Tim and I would hurry up so that we would get done before 11 o'clock so that we could watch The Price is Right at Grandma's house. But pretty soon thereafter, what would we be asked to do? Dad would say, well, what are you doing this after? When we were in like 9th grade, in 8th or 9th grade, and we knew that meant that it wasn't going to be at the swimming pool later that afternoon. We were to come back to do the work. But it built up discipline and character because it was hard work. But also, my Grandma Smith, who was not Catholic, but a Lutheran, had a very beautiful faith. When we would spend the night with her, I could hear her praying her devotions from her room. Also, when my brother Tim and I would spend Saturday nights at her home, she would always make sure that we would go to Sacred Heart in Lancaster on Saturday Mass, the Vigil Mass, before going to her church on Sunday morning. My grandma Saad was also very influential in my vocation. She went to daily Mass and prayed the Rosary and the Divine Mercy Chaplet every day. When we would spend the night with her, we knew we were waking up early to go to Mass. Afterward, we would go to breakfast with her and her lady friends, which was a complete experience, let me tell you. The waitresses at the Columbia Family Restaurant would see the cars come down the hill, and they would all run away because they didn't want to serve them for a 25-cent tip after they were sitting there for 2 hours. But we would see that this was all part of the life, being involved in the life of the family. But it was done not out of any sort of do this. It was always with joy, with hope. On Saturday afternoons, we would walk into my grandma's living room, and she would have a tape of the Rosary playing as she was praying along. Her home was filled with peace. Grandma taught me the beauty of our faith in Christ. She taught me that our faith is joyful even though she endured much suffering in her life. She was filled with hope, and her home was always filled with love. When my brother Chris was ordained a priest in 2001, I had gotten a teaching position at York Catholic just the day before. I remember being very emotional during the ordination Mass. I couldn't stop crying for one reason or another. It was only much later that I realized that at that moment, while I loved teaching and York Catholic, I knew that I was called to something much different. It took me 7 years to discern what God was calling me to do, to discern the priesthood. Because while I had a desire to be a priest, I didn't think I was able to carry out the duties of priesthood. Even though I was a teacher, I didn't and I still don't like to speak publicly. I get very nervous each and every time. And I am an introvert. So I didn't think I had the role or the ability to fulfill the role of a priest. But this shows us that God chooses us for a vocation, and he gives us the gifts and the talents for us to complete what he has given to us, like he does with the fishermen in today's gospel. They were very weak. They had no knowledge of who Jesus was, but he taught them. He gives us the gifts and the talents that we need in order to serve him. So while we may think that we're not able to fulfill our vocation, God gives us that ability. And so he gave me the ability to preach. And I remember my first mass that I actually preached, I couldn't believe I was able to preach without getting so nervous. Because even at back-to-school nights with the parents there, my feet would always shake. My legs would be shaking. Even when I read the first time in seminary with 250 seminarians who always had their eyes glued on the person speaking or the seminarian and were very critical, my legs were shaking so badly that everybody could see that. And I messed up 5 or 6 times at Mass reading. But God gives us the grace to complete the work that he has given to us. So whatever vocation we are in, let us realize that that's the fact. But also realize that each and every one of us have a duty to witness to our life as Catholics and as Christians. That we have to be able to encourage in whatever vocation with joy, realizing that there will be challenges, but it's all for his greater honor and glory. Saint Joseph.
Thank you for listening to our weekly homilies at St. Joseph Parish in York, Pennsylvania. To learn more about us, visit us at www.sjy.org. Find us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube.